She watched a human tear through a serpentine monster with bare hands. The tale began at the frenetic docking hub of Lyra Terminal, a sprawling nexus where the air was thick with the tang of ionized metal and the aromas of 100 alien delicacies. The crowd surged, a living river of beings. Saurian traders in bronze mantles, shimmering insectoids with whispering wings, and humans in battered flight jackets, all swept up in the noise of arrivals and farewells. Hollow signs flickered overhead, advertising everything from nebula fruit to weapons modifications, and the ever-present hum of engines vibrated beneath the metal decking. Striding through this chaos was Captain Syrah, her skin a living canvas of pale blue and violet that caught the shifting light in dazzling ripples. Her eyes, large, amber, feline, swept the crowd with clinical precision. The feathered crest atop her head, now tinged a cautious teal, fluttered as she moved. She glided between clusters of travelers with predatory grace, her slender four-fingered hands tucked neatly behind her back, the embedded tech panels of her bodysuit glimmering with soft pulses that echoed her heartbeat. She cut through the crowd and slipped into a shadowed alcove beneath a battered sign, half obscured by the steam venting from a nearby food stall. The alcove was thick with the scent of ozone and fried algae. Waiting there was her contact, a data runner with a twitchy demeanor and cybernetic filaments pulsing at his temples. His eyes darted restlessly over her shoulder before settling on her face. "You're cutting it close," Syrah said, her voice pitched low, the words sliding past her lips with a measured calm. The data runner grinned, unbothered, his teeth catching the neon gleam from the corridor. "I like to keep things interesting. You got my payment?" "Transfer's already made," Syrah replied, her crest flickering. "Let's keep this brief." He slid a small holopad toward her, his fingers drumming a nervous rhythm. "I hear you need someone who won't ask questions. Human, preferably. Someone skilled enough to get through the black maw and not blink." She narrowed her eyes. "And expendable enough that if things go wrong, it won't come back on me." He chuckled, brushing a strand of synthetic fiber from his brow. "You know how to pick your problems, Captain. There's one name worth the risk. Mason, ex-Earth Federation. These days he's freelance muscle, takes jobs others won't touch. Word is he's meaner than a Sithrax hound and twice as stubborn." Syrah peered past him, following the subtle nod of his head. Across the crowded bar, beneath the orange haze of flickering lamps, sat Mason. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his battered jacket stretched over a frame built for endurance rather than speed. A thin scar traced his right cheekbone, a pale line that caught the light each time he turned. His hair was cropped close, military style, and his posture radiated the wary alertness of a man who had seen too many battlefields. She watched as he sipped a drink, eyes scanning the room with quiet calculation. Nothing about him screamed for attention, but in a crowd of posturing smugglers and drunken pilots, Mason's stillness was its own kind of threat. Syrah squared her shoulders and approached, her boots silent on the scuffed floor. Mason looked up, sizing her up with a soldier's cold efficiency. "Captain Syrah, I presume," he said, voice rough, tinged with an accent from the Sol colonies. "You've done your research." She slid into the seat opposite him, folding her hands atop the table. "I need covert passage through the maw, quiet, efficient, no questions asked." He arched an eyebrow. "That's high-risk territory, and I don't work for promises or charity." Syrah's crest shimmered, signaling irritation. "You'll get hazard pay, double the standard rate, plus a guaranteed extraction clause. If things go wrong, my ship pulls you out, no matter what." Mason leaned in, voice dropping. "I want it in writing, and half up front. I don't trust strangers, Captain." She held his gaze, unblinking. "Neither do I, but I keep my word." He considered, then nodded once. "Deal. Meet me at Dock 42 at dawn. I travel light, and I don't like delays. Syra slid her comm link across the table. My credentials. You'll have clearance. Don't be late. As she stood, Mason caught her eye. For a moment, neither spoke. Respect, edged with caution, sparked between them. Syra turned and melted into the crowd, the weight of her mission pressing against her hip, a single crystalline drive, cool beneath the fabric of her suit. Its secrets, if revealed, would alter the fates of two civilizations. And dawn was coming fast. Aboard Syra's vessel, the Nebula Wisp, silence reigned as they slipped into the void. The starfield beyond the viewport stretched in endless diamond streams, interrupted only by the muted pulse of navigation lights that washed the cockpit in blue and gold. Mason leaned against the console, eyes narrowed at the unfamiliar configuration of the controls, every so often glancing at Syra as she piloted with steady, unhurried precision. For hours, neither spoke. The only sounds were the ship's hum and the distant chirr of the environmental systems. Mason watched the route display flicker across the holoscreen, tracing their path into the shard expanse, a region marked with ominous warning glyphs and jagged, shifting anomalies. He frowned, arms crossed, tension slowly building. Syra's crest shimmered a restless violet as she adjusted course. "Settle in," she said quietly, breaking the silence without looking at him. "We will cross the shard expanse before local dawn." Mason grunted, pushing off the console. "The expanse is crawling with nasties. Razorwings, star lurkers, hell, shard drakes if we're unlucky. This is the worst way to get through this sector." Her gaze was steady, feline pupils narrowing. "Every other route is being monitored. We need to stay off the charts." Mason shook his head. "You're putting a lot of trust in this ship and not much in luck. Why not skirt the nebula's edge? It's longer, but safer." Syra's lips pressed together. "Time is not a luxury we have, and luck is less reliable than my ship." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You've been through here before?" She hesitated a moment too long. "Yes, once, with a full crew and a heavy escort." "Not the same this time," Mason replied. "Just you and me, and whatever's in that crate you're so protective of." A long silence stretched between them, broken only by the stutter of static from the comms. Finally, Syra turned, her expression softened by the faintest glimmer of trust. "You know more about this sector than most humans I've worked with." Mason shrugged. "Spent 3 years running ops out of the Federation garrison on Lyra Prime. The expanse was our backyard. I know where the predators nest, how to hear their calls through the hull." She considered this, crest shifting to a wary green. "Then help me watch for trouble." A grudging partnership formed as they fell into a quiet rhythm, Mason scanning the sensors, Syra keeping the Wisp's course true. Tension simmered, but the silence grew companionable, edged with the unspoken knowledge that survival depended on each other. Hours later, the hum of the ship changed, a subtle, almost imperceptible shift. Mason's brow furrowed. "Do you hear that?" Syra's hands froze on the controls. "Power fluctuation. Diagnostics show Engine 3 dropping output." Mason moved to the systems panel, his fingers dancing over the readout. "That's not a random failure. Someone tampered with this. Look, coolant flow rerouted, safety overrides disabled." Syra's crest flared an anxious orange. Sabotage, but by whom? Mason didn't answer. The alarms blared suddenly, an insistent, angry wail. Life support indicators flashed scarlet. Oxygen levels dropping, cabin temperature plummeting. Syra bolted upright, scrambling for manual controls. "We're losing atmo," Mason barked, lunging to seal the cockpit bulkhead. Syra's voice was calm but urgent. "Nearest settlement?" He punched coordinates into the nav. "Jungle moon of Vera. There's an outpost. Barely a blip, but it's our only shot." Syra didn't hesitate. She slammed the thrusters to maximum, the ship juddering as a damaged engine coughed and spat. The Nebula Wisp veered hard, alarms keening, hull shuddering as they screamed through the upper atmosphere of Vera. The landing was brutal, a sickening drop through violet clouds, treetops whipping past the viewports, the Wisp groaning in protest. Mason gripped the crash restraints, teeth clenched, as Syrah wrestled the controls with ferocious focus. The ship slammed down in a clearing, skidding through phosphorescent undergrowth before shuddering to a halt. Silence returned, thick and heavy, broken only by the hiss of cooling metal. Mason released his harness, breath ragged. "Nice flying," he muttered, running a hand through sweat-damp hair. Syrah didn't answer, already scanning the environmental readouts. "We need to get out. Life support is shot. Carbon levels are rising." They gathered essentials. Medkit, weapons, the crystalline drive secreted at Syrah's hip. The exit hatch groaned open, spilling them into the alien dusk. Outside, Vera's jungle glowed with its own inner light. Trees arched high, their bark pulsing with soft lavender illumination. Ferns unfurled in shades of turquoise, their edges flickering like fireflies. The air was humid and alive with the susurrus of unseen creatures. Syrah paused, eyes wide, crest flickering with anxiety. "We need to reach the outpost before full night. The fauna here are aggressive." Mason checked his rifle and fell in beside her. "Stay close. And if you see movement, tell me. Fast." They pushed into the undergrowth, boots squelching in bioluminescent moss. Each step sent ripples of light through the forest, casting shifting patterns across their faces. The sounds of the jungle grew louder, alien birds trilling, something chittering overhead, the distant roar of a hunting beast. Syrah's nerves were obvious. Her crest trembled in a spectrum of worried hues. "I can sense something. Watching us." Mason angled his body between her and the darkness, voice low. "Keep moving. We're exposed here." They walked in tense silence, the weight of their situation pressing close. Finally, unable to contain his curiosity, Mason spoke. "What's in the drive, Syrah? I deserve to know what I'm risking my neck for." She hesitated, glancing sideways. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Data. Biogenetic research. Proof that virulons and humans share a rare compatibility. Genetic resonance. Something that could unite both species. Or start a war." Mason stopped short, staring at her. "You're saying we're related?" "Not exactly, but we can coexist, even thrive, together. If the right people know, it could change everything." Her voice trembled, not from fear, but from the enormity of the secret she carried. He let out a slow breath. "No wonder someone tried to kill us." Before she could answer, a chilling shriek echoed through the trees. The undergrowth exploded as a monstrous serpentine beast lunged, a nightmare of translucent flesh and flexing muscle. Its skull was crowned with bone spines, and its body shimmered with internal light, organs pulsing visibly beneath the skin. Mason shoved Syrah behind him just as the creature struck. Its fangs grazed her arm, leaving a bloody welt. She stumbled, pain flaring in her eyes, her crest a frantic flare of scarlet. Mason roared, swinging his rifle like a club. He met the beast's lunge head-on, gripping its throat with both hands. The creature thrashed, coils tightening around his waist, but Mason's strength was relentless. With a guttural cry, he drove his boot into its side, wrenching free just as its jaws snapped inches from his face. Syrah watched, stunned, as Mason slammed the beast to the ground, wrestling it with a brutal efficiency honed on 100 battlefields. Finally, with a violent twist, he broke the creature's grip. It slithered away, trailing iridescent blood, vanishing into the shadows. Breathless, Syrah clutched her wounded arm, her gaze fixed on Mason, not with fear, but awe. Mason. For the first time, she let the name linger, her voice soft and uncertain. He knelt beside her, hands gentle as he examined her injury. You're lucky. The venom didn't get in deep. She nodded, shaken by the pain, and by the raw, astonishing force Mason had shown. Their eyes met in the alien glow, the jungle pressing close around them. And for a moment, neither spoke. The world narrowed to just the two of them, caught between danger and possibility. At the cramped outpost, the forced proximity of a single rented cabin brought their guarded partnership to a crossroads. The space was barely larger than a cargo container, its walls sweating with humidity and the faint tang of sterilizer. Rain battered the window in constant percussion, and the meager glow of an overhead panel cast their shadows long and sharp. Two beds, barely more than cots, stood pressed end to end beneath a vent that hummed like a restless insect. Syrah perched on the edge of the nearer cot, her crest subdued, a faded mauve betraying exhaustion and weariness. Mason crouched in front of her, medkit open, the contents arrayed with a soldier's orderliness on a battered crate. He worked in silence, cleaning the wound left by the beast's fangs, hands steady but gentle. Finally, Syrah broke the quiet, her gaze locked on his face. That thing should have crushed you. Most Virellans would have been dead in seconds. You didn't just survive, you fought it off. Mason didn't look up, focusing on the wound. You hired me for a reason. That's not an answer. Her voice was sharper now. What are you? He paused, tape poised in his hand, and met her eyes. In the sterile light, the lines of surgical modification were visible across his knuckles and wrist, fine scars, almost invisible, but unmistakable to anyone who knew what to look for. Syrah's gaze lingered there, her expression unreadable. Mason took a slow breath. Earth is a high-gravity world. Our muscles, our bones, they're denser than most species realize. Federation commandos, like me, are selected for endurance, then enhanced. Nanite injections, tendon grafts, subdermal reinforcements. Makes us faster, harder to break. But it comes at a cost. She studied him, her voice softer. I've seen augmentations before. Yours are different. More integrated. He shrugged, a bitter smile on his lips. That's the point. You don't advertise an asset if you don't have to. It's supposed to be a secret. But the pain... His words faltered. The pain doesn't stay hidden. Syrah reached out, her slender, four-fingered hand tracing the faint lines on his skin. You didn't choose this. No, he admitted. I was ordered. The Federation's way. Build better soldiers, then forget them when the war ends. The silence stretched, heavy with unspoken things. Mason finished bandaging her arm with surprising tenderness, his calloused fingers brushing over her skin as if afraid to do harm. Syrah studied his face, noting the tension in his jaw, the distant look in his amber-flecked eyes. She broke the silence again, her voice barely above a whisper. Why do you keep fighting? He met her gaze, and for a moment, his mask slipped. Because if I stop, everything I did, all the things I survived, they'll be for nothing. The confession lingered between them, drawing them closer. A sudden chime shattered the quiet. The holocom on the wall flashed an encrypted code, Syrah's personal frequency. She stood, tension flooding her posture, and activated the receiver. A grainy hollow image flickered into being. Elder Valen, her mentor, his eyes shadowed with grief. Syrah, the elder's voice trembled. You must listen. The mission. It was a trap. The council never intended you to succeed. You were meant to die with the data. I tried to intervene, but... The signal faltered, static clawing at his words. They fear what you know. You must trust no one. The transmission cut out, leaving only silence and the echo of betrayal. Syrah stood frozen, her breath shuddering in her chest. They wanted me dead. All along. My own people. Mason crossed the cramped space in 2 strides. He rested a steadying hand on her shoulder. You're not alone now. We get the data to someone who will use it right. We finish this together. For a moment, the storm outside seemed to bleed into the room, thunder rolling overhead as if to underscore the chaos within them. Syrah slumped onto the cot, drawing her knees to her chest, the crystalline drive clutched in her palm. Mason sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. In the darkness, Syrah spoke, voice raw. I was born to be a symbol, a bridge between the old bloodlines, Virelin and human. My parents arranged everything, my education, my allegiances. I never got to choose. Mason listened, his own expression shadowed. I was a recruit at 16. They promised purpose. Instead, I became their weapon. I let them break me because I thought it would make me whole. She turned, searching his face. How do you live with it? He managed a hollow laugh. I keep moving. I tell myself the next mission will matter, that if I save enough lives, it will add up to something. The rain intensified, drumming on the metal roof like desperate fingers. Syrah's crest glimmered with the shifting colors of grief and longing. I've never met anyone like you, Mason, not just because of what you are, because of what you've endured. He reached for her hand, hesitated, then took it in his larger palm. His touch was gentle, reverent, as if she were something fragile and precious. Lightning flared, bathing the room in silver. Syrah traced the scar on Mason's cheek, her fingers trembling. He caught her hand, holding it to his skin, his eyes searching hers for permission. The distance between them vanished, the lines of rank and duty dissolving in the charged darkness. Their kiss was hesitant at first, a question and an answer in the space between breaths. But the hunger beneath it was undeniable, desperate, breaking every rule they had clung to. His arms closed around her, drawing her close, and her crest flared bright with exhilaration and relief. Thunder shook the walls, but inside the storm, they found solace in each other. For the first time since their flight began, Syrah let herself lean into Mason's embrace, trusting him not just as a protector, but as a partner. That night, they became more than allies, bound not by contract or necessity, but by the raw truth of who they were and what they might become together. Morning found Syrah wrapped in Mason's arms, her crest softly glowing with the tranquil shades of dawn. The small cabin's window let in a sliver of pale gold, painting her skin in shifting hues of blue and violet. Mason's chest rose and fell beneath her cheek, the steady thrum of his heart anchoring her in a world that had turned dangerously uncertain. She traced the faint lines on his shoulder, scars that were too straight, too deliberate to be anything but surgical. Her breath was warm against his skin. Tell me everything, Mason. Not just the Federation enhancements, all of it. He stirred, eyes opening to meet hers, still rimmed with the shadows of old nightmares. Project Titan, he said quietly. The Federation's answer to the next generation of warfare. We were volunteers at first, recruits picked for endurance, adaptability. They promised us the power to win any fight, to survive where others couldn't. His fingers tightened around hers, voice roughening. But when we started failing the tests, they stopped asking permission. They cut us open, rebuilt us from the inside out. If you didn't make quota, you were recycled for parts. Syrah swallowed, anger shimmering in the rise of her crest. You escaped. He nodded, gaze distant. I let a break out. Most of us didn't make it, but I got clear. Been running ever since. Never stayed anywhere long, until now. She leaned up, her lips brushing his brow. They tried to make you a weapon, but you're more than that. Mason's smile was sad, but real. With you, I almost believe it. Their closeness was more than comfort. It was living proof of the data Sierra carried, of everything the authorities feared. Two species, two histories, united not just in theory, but in flesh and choice. The holocom on the wall blinked red, shattering the fragile peace. Sierra slid from the bed, Mason close behind as she activated the encrypted feed. The message was brief, the words chilling. Traitor. Syra of House Lyran accused of conspiracy with humans. Death warrant issued, authorities en route. The screen snapped dark. Sierra's breath caught, her crest flashing urgent orange. Mason was already pulling on his shirt, checking his sidearm. "They're here," he said. "We have to move. Now." Outside, the outpost was chaos. The Virelon hunter ship descended with a scream of thrusters, its hull bristling with gun ports. Sierra darted through the maze of alleys, Mason at her side, both moving with the silent precision of hunted animals. The first pulse shots tore holes in the muddy ground behind them. "Left!" Sierra called, vaulting a low wall as a squad of assassins in black armor spilled from the ship. Mason covered her, picking off a pursuer with a single shot. "Keep going." "The hangar's ahead." They burst through a battered door into a docking bay thick with engine fumes and desperate faces. A smuggler with a jagged grin jerked his head toward a battered shuttle. "You owe me, Sierra. Get in." They piled aboard, engines spooling before the hatch had sealed. As the shuttle rocketed skyward, Sierra sagged against the bulkhead, adrenaline and terror mixing in her veins. She caught Mason's hand, entwining her fingers with his. "They want us apart," she whispered. "Because together, we're what they fear most." He squeezed her hand. "Then let them fear." Vera's jungle shrank beneath them, and soon the shuttle coasted into the crowded lanes of starships orbiting Meridian Station, the sector's glittering diplomatic hub. Sierra's heart pounded as she replayed their plan. Deliver the data to Ambassador Lissar, plead for sanctuary, and somehow stay alive long enough to see change take root. As the shuttle docked, the smuggler passed Sierra a cloak and pressed a code into her palm. "For when you need to vanish," he said. "Good luck." Inside the terminal, crowds surged in waves of color and noise, diplomats and traders brushing past, oblivious to the fugitives in their midst. Sierra and Mason paused in a shadowed alcove, faces close. "We split up here," Mason said softly. "You have to get to Lissar without being seen. I'll draw any tails." Sierra's eyes glimmered, her crest glowing with conflicted light. She reached up, pressing her palm over Mason's heart. "Come back to me," she said, a silent promise, too precious for words. He cupped her face, lingering. "I will, no matter what." They broke apart, Mason slipping into the crowd with the lethal grace of a trained predator. Sierra cloaked herself, blending with the flow of Virelin and human officials, clutching the drive to her chest. Every step toward the ambassador's wing felt heavier, the air thicker with the weight of betrayal and hope. She navigated the labyrinth of polished corridors, pausing only to check the encrypted code in her palm. The path wound upward to a high gallery overlooking the central forum, where, she prayed, Lissar would be waiting. But as she turned the last corner, a cold voice froze her in place. "Sierra." Elder Valen stepped from the shadows, his eyes hollow with regret and resignation. At his side stood High Regent Solus, her silver robes a shimmering veil over iron resolve. "You have gone far enough," Solus intoned, her voice echoing in the marble hush. "The mission was a test. You have failed your house, your council, and your kind." Sierra's fingers tightened on the drive, her crest flaring with betrayal. "You sent me to die. All this. Just a ruse to draw me out." Valen's gaze flickered with sorrow. "It was the only way. The data cannot be allowed to spread. You are too dangerous. Too much like your father." 2 armored guards closed in, blocking her escape. Sira's mind raced. She saw now the snare for what it was. Not a mission, but an execution masked as duty. Meanwhile, deep within Meridian's detention wing, Mason fought against restraints that bit into his skin. 2 medtechs, Virelin and Human, circled him with clinical detachment, their eyes hungry for the secrets beneath his flesh. The room stank of antiseptic and fear. "He's the one from Project Titan," one tech murmured. "Augmented, adaptable, perfect for dissection." Mason thrashed, rage and desperation burning through his veins. Somewhere above, Sira was alone, perhaps already lost. Sira's heart hammered as she weighed her options. The authorities had what they wanted: the data, the scapegoat, and the perfect specimen. But they had underestimated her resolve. She realized with a sudden, piercing certainty that if she did not act now, both the truth and Mason would be lost forever. Sira raced through Meridian's underbelly, boots striking metal grates slick with condensation, every muscle singing with urgency and fear. Overhead, the station's security net pulsed with red warnings, her face, her crest, the swirling glyphs of treason and betrayal. She ducked into shadows, breath held as patrols swept past in mirrored armor, their rifles gleaming coldly in the corridor lights. She pressed her palm to a locked hatch, neural implant flaring. A blue spark leapt from her fingertips into the panel. Codes flickered, relays clicked, and the door hissed open. Down another spiral stair, past crates stamped with the insignia of House Solus, she moved with the speed of desperation, following the stolen access feed on her wrist display. It showed a blinking red dot. Mason, moving toward a restricted hangar, destined for a transport labeled Research Annex 9. Her thoughts splintered. Visions of Mason on a slab, of data dissected, of everything they were together erased in a burst of cold calculation. No, she wouldn't let it end that way. A checkpoint loomed, 2 guards scanning for fugitives. Sira stepped from the shadows, crest flickering a camouflage gray, her voice modulated to a passable officer's growl. "Code Silver, prisoner transfer, move." One guard hesitated. The other nodded, distracted by the false alert she'd seeded in the system moments earlier. Sira swept past, pulse pounding, and slid behind a stack of containers as the security doors to the launch bay yawned open. Inside the cavernous hangar, technicians swarmed around a squat, armored shuttle, its engines rumbling with impatience. 2 guards marched Mason up the ramp, wrists bound, expression unreadable. He moved with the coiled tension of a predator, every muscle primed. Sira darted along the hull's blind side, found a maintenance port, and spliced the lock with trembling hands. She slipped inside, crawling through the stifling conduit, guided by the faint vibrations of Mason's struggle ahead. As she reached the access hatch, chaos erupted. Mason, sensing his moment, surged to his feet, snapping his restraints against the edge of a cargo crate. One guard went down in a blur of motion, Mason's elbow to his throat, a swift pivot, a knee to the solar plexus. The second guard fired, the pulse bolt singing past Mason's ear, scorching the wall. Sira burst from the hatch, catching the guard's arm, twisting and wrenching the weapon away. Mason seized the opportunity, driving his fist into the guard's midsection. The man crumpled, unconscious. Mason whipped around, recognition flaring in his eyes. "Sira, how?" "No time," she said, breathless, tossing him the fallen guard's sidearm. "We have to move." They sprinted for the cockpit as alarms blared through the shuttle. Automated systems began the launch sequence, magnetic clamps disengaging. Through the viewport, Virelin interceptors, sleek and predatory, dropped into formation. Mason slid into the pilot's chair, fingers flying over unfamiliar controls. "Never flown one of these," he muttered, "but it can't be worse than a Federation gunship." Syrah sealed the hatch, overriding the failsafes, her crest burning with adrenaline. "I'll handle countermeasures, just get us clear." The shuttle lurched from the hangar, Mason weaving between refueling drones and debris as the first interceptor loosed a warning shot. It sizzled past, shaking the hull. "Shields at 30%, Syrah reported, hands gliding across the console. "Deploying decoys." A volley of shimmering flares erupted behind them, drawing two pursuers away. The shuttle plunged into a dense asteroid cluster, rocks tumbling like ancient bones. Mason's jaw clenched as he twisted the yoke, threading the ship through gaps barely wider than its hull. "They're still gaining," he growled. "If they hit us in here—" "Let's not let them," Syrah snapped, fingers darting across the comms. She patched into the auxiliary transmitter, encrypted the drive's contents, and targeted Lysar's aide on Meridian. "Uploading data. Cover me." The interceptors fired again. The shuttle's rear shields flared, warning sirens keening. Mason dove between two spinning boulders, hull scraping, sparks blooming in the vacuum. Syrah watched the upload bar crawl across the display. 10%, 30, 70. "Hurry," she urged. "We're losing power." The cockpit shook with another impact, consoles flickering. Mason fought the controls. "We're dead in the water if you don't finish." 90%. 98. The drive beeped. "Upload complete." "It's done," Syrah shouted. Almost instantly, the asteroid field lit with searchlights as a dozen Varellan fighters ringed them. The shuttle's systems spat smoke. Mason looked to Syrah, jaw set. "Got any miracles left?" Before she could answer, a blinding burst of white filled the cockpit. Then, the thunder of railguns, not aimed at them, but at the interceptors. Debris scattered. Through the haze, a massive warship slid into view. Angular, armored, its hull emblazoned with the blue-gold seal of Earth, the horizon. A calm hail chimed, crisp and unmistakable. "This is Captain Reyes of the Earth vessel Horizon. Stand down, shuttle. We have you." Mason's relief was ragged. "Syrah, that's our ride." She reached for the comm. "Horizon, requesting emergency docking. 2 souls aboard." The Horizon's guns blazed again, blasting a path through the interceptor line. The shuttle shuddered as tractor beams locked on, drawing them toward the yawning hangar. Syrah sagged against the console, sweat streaking her temples, crest flickering with exhausted triumph. As the shuttle touched down, emergency teams rushed in, weapons ready but lowered in recognition. Mason slipped an arm around Syrah's shoulders, steadying her. They emerged, battered but alive, into the glaring lights of the Horizon's bay. Syrah looked up at Mason, a smile flickering through her exhaustion. Together, they had survived the impossible. And with the truth in the open, the fight was far from over. Aboard the Horizon, Syrah and Mason sat side by side in the debriefing chamber, a low-lit room pulsing with quiet urgency. The air tasted of recycled oxygen and distant ozone, and the hum of the mighty warship's engines vibrated through their bones. Across the table, Captain Reyes regarded them with sharp, steady eyes, a woman whose calm masked the storm gathering beyond the hull. Hollow screens flickered, displaying feeds from news nets across the sector. Headlines scrolled in a dozen languages. "Genetic revelation shatters galactic barriers. Virellan Council in turmoil. Human-Virellan union possible?" The truth, once encoded in Syrah's crystalline drive, now blazed across every world. "Your transmission reached both governments," Reyes said, voice clipped but not unkind. "The councils cannot deny the data's authenticity. We've intercepted a dozen statements, some demanding cooperation, others calling for immediate separation. There are riots on Meridian and celebrations on Drail. You've changed the galaxy, for better or worse." Syrah's crest shimmered with the colors of hope and trepidation. She glanced at Mason, his hand finding hers beneath the table, anchoring her to this singular reality. And Elder Valen? Regent Solus? Mason asked, his voice edged with a soldier's wariness. Reyes nodded. Both are in custody, charged with high treason against the Viralan people. But power shifts quickly. There are still factions on both sides who would see you silenced. The data's out, but the danger isn't over. Syrah straightened, drawing a steady breath. We knew there'd be fallout, but hiding was never an option. Reyes studied them a long moment, then leaned in, voice low. You both have a choice. New identities, transport to a safe haven in the outer belt, or you can stay and help shape what comes next. There are people who would follow your lead, who need to see living proof that unity is possible. Mason's thumb brushed the back of Syrah's hand, silent communication passing between them. Syrah's gaze softened, her heart pounding with the knowledge that everything had changed, yet so much remained uncertain. Thank you, Captain, Mason said quietly. But we need a moment. Reyes inclined her head. The ship is yours. Take all the time you need. She stood and departed, leaving them alone in the hum and half-light. For a long while, neither spoke. The world outside their small sphere spun on the axis of what they had risked and won. The weight of history pressed in, but Mason's hand was steady, and Syrah's resolve was a living thing, bright and fierce inside her. At last Mason spoke, his tone light but eyes searching. Did you ever think it would end like this? Sitting on an Earthship, our faces on every screen, the whole galaxy watching? Syrah's lips curved in a half-smile. I imagined many endings. None this uncertain. None this full of hope. Their laughter was soft, threaded with relief and exhaustion. Mason squeezed her hand. We're not alone anymore. Whatever comes, we face it together. A chime sounded, gentle and persistent. Syrah answered the call. Lyser's aide, her face drawn but determined, appeared in hologram. Syrah, Mason, you've done what many believed impossible. The councils will convene on Meridian in 3 days. Your testimony is required. Yours, and Mason's. The galaxy needs to see you. Syrah nodded, her voice steady. We'll be there. Tell them we won't hide. The aide's eyes flickered with gratitude before the image faded. Alone again, Syrah drew a deep breath, feeling the future pressing in on every side. Come with me, she whispered. They slipped from the chamber, navigating the gleaming corridors of the horizon to the observation deck, a cathedral of glass and steel overlooking the endless tapestry of stars. The galaxy sprawled before them, luminous and infinite, beckoning with promise and peril. For a moment, Syrah stood silent, drinking in the starlight. Mason wrapped his arms around her waist, drawing her close. Her crest glowed softly, mirroring the shimmer of distant nebulae. She spoke, barely more than a breath. What are we now? Mason turned her gently, meeting her gaze in the quiet vastness. We're the proof that change is possible, he said, voice sure and unwavering. We're the future, if we're brave enough to claim it. His words sank in, their meaning echoed in the hush of the cosmos. In the starlight, Syrah saw Mason's humanity and her own reflection, differences rendered insignificant by the strength of what they shared. She reached up, tracing the line of his jaw, memorizing the shape of hope. Their kiss was slow and deliberate, neither hurried nor hesitant, a vow spoken not in words, but in trust and certainty. Time seemed to pause, the universe itself giving them space to savor the moment. When they parted, Syrah pressed her forehead to his. Let's face them together, the councils, the future, whatever comes. Mason nodded, his eyes shining with promise. Together, and after, we find a place of our own. somewhere the past can't reach us. A laugh bubbled from her lips, light and free. With you, the galaxy isn't cold at all. It's endless, full of possibility. Hand in hand, they stood at the edge of the stars, burdens falling away, hearts lifted by the knowledge that they were no longer fugitives, but pioneers. Outside, the horizon's engines rumbled, carrying them forward, toward council chambers and uncertain days, toward a reckoning that would shake worlds. But Syrah was ready. With Mason at her side, she saw not fear, but hope. 1,000 chances for new beginnings. Whatever awaited, conflict, peace, or something unforeseen, they would meet it as equals, united by love and the promise of change. As the horizon sailed into the unknown, Syrah closed her eyes, ready to embrace whatever the stars would bring. That's the end of the story. Please do not forget to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and write in the comments what you liked most about this story. Our team will be very grateful to you. You can find even more fascinating stories on our channel. See you in the next video.